What's good, everyone? Next week, the new Godzilla X Kong movie comes out, so I decided I'd go back and review the two Toho King Kong films, the first one being King Kong vs. Godzilla. And this was my first time watching this movie. I'd seen some scenes from it on YouTube, but I had never seen the full original film, so it was pretty neat to go back and see it. So it was an interesting movie. It's not my favorite one of the Showa era Godzilla films, but far from the worst, of course. There may be some minor spoilers in this review, but I'm going to try and keep it mostly spoiler-free this time around. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to me at the time of purchase, my Blu-ray of the film does not include the original Japanese audio and English subtitles, so I had to watch the dub of the movie. I hate watching the dubs of these old Godzilla movies. They're old movies, obviously, and I can't really blame them for having bad dubbing. I mean, some areas I feel like I can, because half the voice actors just feel like they're reading their lines off the page for the first time, and like they're not even trying to like sync up or sound like how the characters would sound. But the dubbing is bad, and it really took me out of the movie for like the first half of it, and I started to get a little bit used to it. But if I saw the original Japanese audio version with subtitles, I guarantee I would be much kinder to this film. As it stands, I thought it was just okay. A lot of the story is really thin, and it just kind of like feels like it's meandering around a lot. The parts on Faroe Island, not Skull Island for whatever reason, it is a little bit of fun seeing the cool set designs. That's one thing that I really loved about this movie. I think this has a really great set designs in it. The big octopus on Faroe Island was pretty cool because they just got an actual octopus to like crawl around and destroy a set, like a miniature set for a while, and that was pretty cool. When Kong started fighting it, it wasn't as cool. They only had like one shot where they actually used a puppet. Otherwise, they just kind of took the footage of the actual octopus and then green screen Kong fighting nothing over it, basically, is what they did. And it just doesn't really work very well. Like, it doesn't look like there's any impact on the octopus, because there's not. It's an actual octopus just chilling in front of like a green screen. So the fight there wasn't very good. The octopus on its own was pretty cool though. But you get that scene there in like the middle of the movie, and until the last like 15 minutes, there's not a lot of monster action. Like, you see the monsters, but they're not doing a whole lot. I mean, Kong spends half of his screen time getting drunk. As for Godzilla, he really does not have a lot of time in this movie, and it's an interesting similarity between this movie and the newer Godzilla vs. Kong movie, in that King Kong is sort of played as like the underdog, and he's more of the main character of this movie, at least as far as monsters go. Now, Godzilla in this movie is treated more of a standalone Godzilla movie, more than it is actually in continuity with the other Showa era films, at least in the version I watched. And I think it's just the version I watched, because at the end of Raids Again, the movie that came out before this, Godzilla is like stuck in an iceberg, basically. And that's how he starts out in this movie, is breaking out of the ice. And I watched the American version, and they act like Godzilla has basically never been seen before. Kind of. Like, the Japanese characters, like, oh, it's Godzilla. Like, they already know who he is. The American added scenes act like he's never been seen before, and they're like, oh, he's a dinosaur emerging from the ice for the first time. The world has been forced to realize that prehistoric life is still around on the planet, whatever. And they're like, Godzilla's been around for millions of years, and it's like, okay, but he was just there in the last movie. But it seems like at least the American version ignores that, because the continuity does pick up where the last one left off. Visually, as far as dialogue is concerned, it's different, which is odd. I mentioned earlier, the set design is really good. As for all the other effects, they're not so great. Not the best of the Showa era, as far as I'm concerned. There is a lot of And you get these in all these movies, but there's a lot of like the green borders around people, um, a lot of just generally meh special effects, and then there's the costume design of King Kong and Godzilla. As for King Kong, I kind of get it because he's never been Suitmation before and he's never been this big before, but he still just looks stupid. And Godzilla looks stupid, but that's not really a bad thing because each of these characters has had their bad designs and the good designs, and these ones I think are the pinnacle of their so bad they're good designs. Like, they're so goofy looking that they're just perfect in their own special way. And this movie is probably the first Godzilla movie to start to have that sillier tone, and this is a silly movie. I thought it was actually pretty funny, and the costumes fit that tone. Like I said, the plot's pretty thin, and this movie doesn't take itself seriously at all. There is some messaging kind of in there that might be in there more in the Japanese version about how far companies will go to get a little bit of publicity or whatever. I don't know. I don't really know what the point was to all that, but it was there. It's kind of in line with the original King Kong, with how they're taking a giant monster to New York just to shoot a movie, basically, just to get money, because he's the eighth wonder of the world. They try to commercialize a living thing, and there's definitely something to that in the original movie, and the way they handle it in this one just doesn't really make sense to me. I didn't really get it. But once we get to the final fight at the end, it's pretty good. The movie's short enough that it's kind of worth the wait. It's funny enough that it's worth the wait. It's not the most rewatchable of these movies because of the wait, but the fight itself is pretty solid. But I've watched it on YouTube several times before watching this movie, and I'll probably watch it again before I watch the full movie again. Now, the fight itself it's pretty good. It's funny. I mean, King Kong shoves a tree down Godzilla's throat. I mean, what more do you need? So that about covers my thoughts on the original King Kong versus Godzilla. It's okay. It's not my favorite. It's really just a 6 out of 10 for me. Maybe I boost it up to a 7 because of the historical importance. Like, King Kong fighting Godzilla for the first time is a huge deal, especially back when this came out. Hopefully my slightly different setup with the new mic wasn't too janky for this video. Hopefully it sounds better. But with that out of the way, thanks for watching.